Good Erev Shabbos. Such a pleasure to see you. I'm at the shops at Chestnut Hill, where you see this beautiful menorah that we arranged for the shops many years ago. We put up every year. And of course we have our yearly tradition, our celebration on Sunday at the shops, which is a perfect day because it's going to be raining this year. And we have a DJ and face painting and balloon twisting and a show and latkes and donuts and everything else you want. We'll be right here in Center Court, and we hope you're able to join us for that. Which reminds me that it's actually 50 years exactly since the first public menorah out in Philadelphia. You know, the Rebbe revolutionized many, many things. But one of the staples of what the Rebbe revolutionized was the public menorah. Because the Rebbe felt, and many American Jews felt, that you're a Jew at home. But when you're out, you're just a regular citizen. And the Rebbe felt that we needed to be proud Jews, even in the street. And that the menorah represented that Jewish pride out in the streets. And I saw Elliot Kaufman, who's the editor of the Letters to the Editor, who in the Wall Street Journal posted how today, 50 years later, all the detractors who complained about the public menorahs are back at it and doing it too. And even Abraham Foxman, who was the head of ADL for 50 years, responded to that tweet and said, I agree, I was wrong all that time. We need to be proud, public Jews in the public sphere. And that's what we do in every city hall, in every country. Chabad all over is celebrating and bringing Jewish pride. And so many of my friends have sent me pictures, if it's Aruba, if it's Paris, if it's Vermont, wherever they may be, if it's Mauritius, telling me we are celebrating with Chabad, Jewish pride and public menorah. In any case, you know, this week in Shul, we're going to take out two Torahs. And the first one, we're going to read the Parsha Miketz, and then we will go on to the Parsha and read the story of the dedication of the temple. And usually Miketz and Chanukah always come together. And the holy Chassidic master of Naftali of Ropshitz asks, what's the connection between Chanukah and Miketz? And he says something very interesting. He says, in the portion of Miketz, Joseph forces the brothers to bring Benjamin down to him. And Benjamin comes. And when he gives them their portions of dinner, he gives Benjamin 5 times the portion. Why? Because he wanted to see if the brothers would be jealous of the preferential treatment that Benjamin got. He wanted to see if they repented from how they reacted to the preferential treatment that his father gave him. And since Benjamin was his brother, he would see how they reacted. But the word that the Torah uses, Rav Talei of Ropshitz says, is chamesh yadot. The word that the Torah uses for portions is 5 hands. And it's not a typical word to use for portions. And why does he use chamesh yadot? And Rav Talei of Ropshitz says something so powerful. He says this is the connection between the portion of Miketz and between Chanukah. Because in the Va'al HaNisim, which is the prayer we read in the services every day on Chanukah and Amidah, it speaks 5 times. It says that God sent Rabim biyad ma'atim, the many in the hands of the few, Giborim biyad chalashim, the mighty in the hand of the weak, Zaydim biyad eiskisecha, those who were ignorant and evil in the hands of those who study Torah. And he goes through 5 things. But the word he uses is biyad, like the Giborim, the strong ones, in the hands of the weak ones. And the question Rav Talei of Ropshitz asks is, why does he say biyad in the singular and not biyad in the plural? There were many Jews who fought the Hellenists and the Greeks. There were many Maccabees. Why does he use the word biyad? And he says something very beautiful. You see, in the time of Chanukah, the way they won was because they were united. And what Joseph tells us in this week's Torah portion, when he says chamesh yadot, the 5 portions, he says, you see, Binyamin and Joseph had a tremendous unity and kindred spirit. And when he was telling the Jewish people, in order for us to be victorious, we need to be united. Look at the story of Chanukah. In the Va'al HaNisim, we say 5 times the word yadot, yad, singular. It was one hand. The Jews were united as one. And that's the connection between Chanukah and between portion and decades. Because Joseph was telling the Jewish people, if we want to be victorious, we need to learn from the relationship of Joseph and his brother, and pray and hope that later generations and his other brothers would connect and have that unity together. And that's what we've been seeing since October 7th. We've been seeing a tremendous unity amongst the Jewish people, secular, religious, Israeli, diaspora, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, Yemenite, Ethiopian. All the Jews have been united as one. You know, there's a remarkable story. In 1947, there was this young man who immigrated from Europe, and he came to fight in the Irgun. The Irgun was the underground that fought the British to allow Jews who didn't want to allow Jews to come to Israel, then British mandate, to be able to come. And Menachem Begin was in charge, and this guy, Dov Gruner, was arrested by the British, and he was sentenced to death. He was going to be hung. And his sister flew in from America, to maybe meet him and see him before he was hung. But the British didn't let. Even the rabbi that he wanted to bring to meet him, the British refused to let. In the middle of the night, Dov Gruner was hung without his sister or his rabbi being able to see him for his last wishes. But he wrote a last letter to Menachem Begin, who was the head of the Irgun. And he said like this, you know, I could have immigrated to America, to Europe. I don't regret for 1 minute immigrating to Israel to fight for my people. But what I regret is one thing, that I didn't do enough for my people. I wish I could have done more. That's the letter he writes to Menachem Begin. Fast forward 20 years, 1967, Israel has the Six-Day War and captures the old city of Jerusalem. Moshe Dayan sends the first soldier down to pray at the Kotel. Who's the first soldier that goes there? His name is Dov Gruner. It's a nephew of the Dov Gruner who was hung in Yaffo in the prison by the British. You see, after he was hung, his brother had a child and named him Dov Gruner, hoping that he would continue his legacy. And when they asked Moshe Dayan, why did you choose this soldier? He said, I didn't choose him. It was destiny. It was God who chose him. Because God wanted to show that the work of Dov Gruner, who was hung brutally in the prison by the British, continues and didn't finish. Dov Gruner wished he did more, but really he did more because his nephew continued his work. It might be Dov Gruner, an uncle, it might be Dov Gruner, a nephew, or it might be tens of thousands of IDF soldiers who are risking their life every day to protect the Jewish people. When we have Chamesh Yadot, when our hands are Yad in the singular, when we're united like the Jews were in the time of the Maccabees, when we're united like Joseph was with his brother Benjamin, then we are victorious. May Hashem give us that as we light the menorah tonight, we should celebrate today, you light menorah from 3:30 and on, and afterwards, before 4:01, you light Shabbos candles. And you know, the Rebbe had many mitzvot besides the menorah mitzvah. But two of the most powerful ones the Rebbe spoke about was the Shabbat candles and the Hanukkah candles. And the Rebbe said, because every mitzvah is ner mitzvah, every mitzvah has a candle, has a light to it. But these are the two mitzvot that not just that they have a spiritual light to it, they have a physical light. Because when you light the Shabbos candles, you bring warmth and love. And when you light the menorah, you bring warmth and love. So I encourage you all, today, if you're in Boston or wherever you are, check the time, light your candles, the menorah, together with your family. And then have your wife light your Shabbos candles. And the light that you will bring in, the warmth, the love, should illuminate the darkness of the world we live in. And if you're in Boston, I hope to see you on Sunday, 3 p.m. at the shops at Chestnut Hill. Shabbat Shalom, Happy Hanukkah, and see you all soon.